Hello, this is the Anxiety RX podcast. I am your host, Dr. Russ Kennedy, a medical doctor and neuroscientist who suffered from crippling anxiety for a very, very long time and had to find my own way out. Today, I'm going to talk about something that's kind of personal to me and what I'm kind of going through right now. I have 3 dogs, Buddha, Riley, and Ellie. Buddha is 14 and a half, Riley is about 7, and Ellie is about 3. Buddha has been with me since my birthday, November 29th, 2009, and he is starting to fail. And I am looking at the decision of putting him to sleep. And while he's still quite functional, his rear end isn't working very well. Like, he doesn't walk very well, but he has good days and bad days. And like I said, this is really personal to me. And I wrestled with sharing it with you, but I think it's important to understand that, I'm not anxiety free by any means at all, but I'm a million times better than I used to be. This would have sent me into orbit 10 years ago. And now it's something that, of course, I feel, and it makes me sad, and it makes me frustrated, and it makes me angry that I have to lose him, because I think it harkens back to losing my father in a way. Like, losing something that you love is really, really difficult. And I think for those of us with anxiety, OCD, depression, I think our animals are so important because it's a love we can trust. And I think when you have anxiety, there was something in your background, typically, not always, but typically, that you couldn't trust in the way of love. Like, I couldn't trust my father, even though he was never abusive or violent or whatever. And I know I mentioned that many, many times before. But I couldn't trust the love from him because it was wrapped in so tightly with pain when he would go depressed or psychotic or manic or whatever. So the thing about our animals is that we love them so much. And unfortunately, they don't live as long as we do. It's been said that a day for a dog is a week. It's like a week for us, or a week for us is like a day for a dog. I don't remember exactly. I'm not exactly thinking as clearly as I'd like to today. I'm pretty upset about this situation because my dog boarders that take Riley, Ellie, and Buddha, when we go away on holidays, kind of called us up and said, hey, we can't really take Buddha anymore because he's just not that functional. And even though he can walk and do things, it's not fair to him. And I agree with that. I do get frustrated with it, but not from the point of view of being frustrated with the boarders. I just get frustrated with the fact that, why does he have to fail? Why does he have to not be able to walk properly? Like, it breaks my heart. I take them out on a walk twice a day, and just to see him kind of limping and just doing the dog thing, like you don't know any different, but I knew him when he could jump 3 or 4 feet off the ground. Leandra, my daughter, and I call it the 4-paw hop. And he would chase that ball endlessly. If you ever see old videos of me on Facebook with him, he was a great soccer goalie as well. So you'd kick the ball and he would jump at it and block it and stuff. So he was crazy for the ball, and to see him kind of decline like this breaks my heart. And getting back to the whole thing about us and our animals, we love them. And one of the things that I do is sometimes I block love for myself. And I think that's true for all of us with anxiety. I think the reason we have anxiety is we block love for ourselves, typically because that love when we were younger on some level wasn't safe. We didn't perceive that love was safe. We either had an abusive parent or a parent that was neglectful or rejected us or whatever. The love wasn't safe and pure. And I know there's no perfect parent. I know that it involves sensitivity as well. I was a very sensitive child, still am a sensitive child. And I think that sensitivity works in our favor. It helps me read people. It helps me understand them. It helps me be a really good doctor for them, especially when it comes to anxiety. But the downside of that is I feel everything. So one of the things that I would do, and I would suggest to my anxiety people, is to love yourself like you love your dog or cat or pet, whatever pet you have. So I would do this thing where I rub Buddha's head or his body or his belly or whatever, and I get all this love on my hands, and then I shove it into myself. So I do this. I did this today with him because I've been spending more time with him lately, just on the ground and giving him kisses on his snout and just loving on him and giving him extra treats that the other two don't get. So I have to make sure the other two, Riley and Ellie, are outside or whatever, and then I'll give him a piece of ham from the packet, just because I love him so much. And it's so hard for me to see him fail, because I don't remember. I've had him for almost 15 years. I don't really remember a lot of what life it was without him. And he has seen me through, being suicidal, being so anxious. And I write in the book that, sometimes I wouldn't even go out of the house unless it was to take him out. So he was my only sort of connection to the world for a long time. I would go to work. For some reason, I could just go to work, come home. I wouldn't do much of anything else. There were some years in there that I was so anxious that I just wouldn't want to leave the house. But I could always go out with him, and people would always come up to him and say, "Oh, is he an Irish wolfhound? Is he this or he that?" Because he has this kind of generic, kind of like loving face. Everyone loves Buddha. That's the saying around the house, is that everybody loves Buddha. And the reason I call him Buddha is because he's so mellow. Like when I first went to get him in November 26, 2009, they said, he'll be ready to go in 3 days, which was my birthday, November 29, 2009. So I thought, well, this is a message from God. So I knew it was him, and it was him and his sister in the pen, and his sister was running around like crazy. And he was just mellow at the back, like, "Hey man, what's going on? What's happening, dude?" And I picked him up and he just melted into me. And it was like, okay, well, this is my dog. This is my dog. So I picked him up 3 days later. He weighed 14.8 pounds. Then he weighs 85 pounds now. And living to 14 and a half is a long time for an 85-pound dog. And I realized that. And I think he's lived this long because he gets so much love. And again, coming back to it, I think it's one of those things that we can trust love from our pets. And I think that that's so healing. And it also shows us that we can give that same love to ourselves. And that's what I do with him. Like I said, I love on him, I pet him, and then I push that love into myself, because I, to this day, still kind of resist giving love to myself. I'm a million times better than I was, but it's still kind of that old unconscious pattern. So I think when we love something so much, it just shows us that we're capable of that love. And in fact, I'm a little suspicious of people that don't have a connection to animals, that don't have that sort of loving connection, especially the ones that have anxiety or depression or are an addiction. They're alcoholics or whatever. I'm always kind of suspicious of those people that kind of keep animals at bay, because I think they really are blocking a huge source of love, not only for the animal and from the animal, but for themselves. Like, you get to experience this sense of love. Now, of course, the other side of that coin is when they go, it's devastating. Like it's devastating when they go. Like I've been trying to imagine what life is going to be without him. I have another 2 dogs to kind of take up the slack a little bit, but Buddha has been, and again, I call him Buddha because he's just so mellow. Like, he's just like, whatever, dude, whatever you want to do, until it comes to a ball. Like a ball, he's a bit psycho when it comes to a ball, but not so much anymore because he's not as active as he used to be. I know I'm kind of rambling here today. And again, I kind of wrestled with myself as to whether or not I should put this podcast out, because it's so personal. But in a way, it shows me the depth of love that actually can create within myself, even if I have a block for putting that love into myself. It just shows you that you can love, and you can feel love, and you can allow it. And I think it's just so important, because love is basically what heals fear, as cliche as that sounds. There is only love and fear. And I talk about this in the book as well. It's kind of like in a closed box. And the more fear you push in, the more love you push out. But the converse of that is the more love you push in, the more fear you push out. And I believe that love, that loving spirit, that we have for ourselves and we have for that younger version of us, if we can put that love into the younger wounded child that's in us, we can heal that original wound. Bruce Perry, who wrote this book with Oprah called What Happened to You, talks about this neurosequential model of healing. So when we're formed, when we're embryos, it's interesting the way the neural tube, the way the brain and spinal cord form is initially the outside of the embryo involutes. It turns on itself. So the outside becomes the inside. And then that forms the brain and the spinal cord. And it's interesting because the brain makes an internal representation of the outside world for the rest of our lives. I just found it fascinating the way that the embryo forms this brain and spinal cord through this involution of the neural tube that makes the neural tube. And then the brainstem, which is the bottom part of the brain, the part that sort of controls the body most, forms first. And then the limbic system forms kind of second, the emotional kind of brain. And then the cortex forms last and doesn't even mature until our late 20s. So if your brainstem, the first part of your brain, is formed in survival, if your mother's stressed, if your father's stressed, when you're still in utero, your brainstem is forming in this milieu of survival. And then that dictates how the emotional brain is going to develop. Because if your brainstem develops in this survival fashion, your limbic system, your emotional system will adopt this survival mechanism as well. And then your cognitive mind, your cortex, your prefrontal cortex, your thinking brain will form on top of those two survival-based entities. So it's no wonder that we sensitive people have this look at life that it's more about survival than it's about thriving. And I think when we go back and we find that younger version of ourselves, this is what Dr. Perry talks about too, when we do this sequentially, when we go back and we find the body and we heal the body, it relates through everything. It takes us back to that place where the injury first occurred and allows us a chance to change that, so that we change the brainstem, we change the body, we change the bottom part of the brain. And then the emotional part of our brain, kind of in reverse, heals on top of that. And then the cognitive part of our brain heals on top of that. Because I notice in my healing from anxiety, I still get worries. I just don't pay that much attention to them anymore. I just sort of see them as something that's outside of me, and that kind of humorously that my mind is creating because I know that I'm stressed. So I'm getting more worries these days because I'm stressed because of Buddha. So it just shows this energy. If we have this energy of stress in our system, and we grew up with stress and trauma and a source of love that we maybe couldn't trust, we will tend to move into survival. We will tend to look at the world as a dangerous place, consciously or unconsciously, or both. And that forms the way that we feel about the world. And when we go through difficult times, like I am with Buddha, and Buddha could be around for another 6 months, it really makes us aware of how fleeting and how in the balance our mental health can be. And when we get stressed, if we're able to build capacity and resilience in the nervous system, which I have done for myself, and I'm hoping that I'm doing that for other people, we can handle these things so much better. Because I know that if I went through this 5 years ago, this would be absolutely devastating. It's hard now, but I can't imagine what it would be like going through this 5 years ago when I didn't have the capacity and the resilience of my nervous system that I have built by connecting with the younger version of me, by connecting with my body. I've said that anxiety is really a separation of your mind and your body and your adult self from your child self. So things like yoga, breath work, just creating a conscious intention to be whole, to create, to connect your mind and your body together is helpful. And then having the adult in you connect with the child in you that was hurt, that the adult has kind of pushed that child away because the child holds our pain, connecting the adult and the child together, and connecting that wasn't Buddha, by the way, if you heard that bark, that was Ellie, but connecting the adult self and the child self, and connecting the mind and the body, that's how we heal anxiety. I don't know if there's any other way. There's ways, there's neurofeedback, there's hypnosis, there's all sorts of ways that'll make us feel better. But to really heal, we have to connect our adult self with our child self again. We have to connect our mind and our body, because basically we got chopped up into disparate parts when we experienced trauma as a child. So those disparate parts affect our nervous system. They make us look at the world through this milieu of survival rather than growth. And as we put our mind and body back together, and as we put our adult self and our child self back together, we start developing this sense that the world is a safe place, that I can handle things, that if things come up that are disturbing or troubling or painful, that I have enough resilience and capacity in my nervous system that can handle it. I think that's going to be it for today. Thanks for listening to me. And I hope you can relate to this. And I hope if you do have a pet, that you can love yourself as much as you love your pet. And I'll see you next week.